questions, questions orales. The honourable member of Calgary Forest Lawn.
After 8 years of failed Liberal policies driving up inflation, Canadians are faced with high interest rates, higher mortgage payments, and seeing home prices double across the country. An average monthly mortgage under this government has more than doubled, going from $1,500 to more than $3,000. Home ownership is also impossible and a pipe dream for 9 out of 10 young people, as 35-year-olds are forced to continue to live in their parents' basements. Let's be clear, Liberal inflation caused this mess. Will they apologize and take responsibility for pricing young Canadians out of homes?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, our plan not only makes life more affordable for Canadians, but is also fiscally responsible. We have confirmed our AAA credit rating. We have recovered 121% of our jobs lost during the pandemic, while the United States has only recovered 106%. We have maintained the lowest deficit and the lowest net debt to GDP ratio in the G7. That positions us very well to get inflation under control, improve affordability, and make sure that we create good, sustainable jobs for Canadians.
8 years of failed Liberal policies, Canadians have never had it so bad. And as Liberals continue to fist bump each other for spending hundreds of billions of dollars of other people's money, the results are absolutely horrific. 1 in 5 Canadians are completely out of money. 1 in 5 Canadians are skipping meals. And not only did Liberal inflation drive up the price of everything, they pile drive Canadians by raising taxes on them. Why are they so intent on taking more money from Canadians, leaving hardworking people and their family with less money and empty stomachs?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship.
Madam Speaker, I'm getting tired of listening to the Conservatives talk down Canadians and the Canadian economy. They should be getting to work to support Canadians in their time of need. We've made efforts through this pandemic to make sure that families could continue to put food on the table and keep a roof over their heads. We made efforts to make sure businesses could keep their doors open and the lights on. Every step of the way, they have opposed these measures. We're going to be there for Canadians in their time of need because it's the right thing to do. The Conservative strategy to combat inflation is to take more money away from families. We will be there for them in the time of need, no matter what it takes.
Yes, I want to remind members that when someone has the floor that they should be listening to the answer. They may not like the answer, but they should listen to it. The Honourable Member for Calgary Forest Lawn wasn't interrupted during his question, and I would ask the same respect for when the answers are there. So the Honourable Member for Calgary Forest Lawn.
We won't take advice from the guy who broke the immigration system. And after 8 years, the Liberals continue to deny any responsibility for the Liberal inflation that they caused, causing all the pain on Canadians. But you know what? There's a list of random Liberals who prove that they are responsible. Tiff Macklem, who said inflation is homegrown. Mark Carney said inflation is a domestic issue. Bill Morneau admitted that the Liberals overspent. Even former Liberal Finance Minister John Manley said Liberal spending is fueling inflation. So should we believe these random Liberals that continue to say that everything is rosy and fine, or should we believe the other random Liberals who say it's their fault for causing inflation?
Yeah. The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugee and Citizenship.
Speaker, I would point out to the honourable member who I had the pleasure of serving on the immigration portfolio that during the next year we expect to welcome more than double the number of newcomers to this country than they did the last year that they formed government. Madam Speaker, at the same time, our strategy to support Canadians over the course of the pandemic, a once-in-a-century disaster, was successful in making sure that 9 million Canadians received CERB so they could keep food on the table. They opposed those measures. We introduced the wage subsidy that had 4.5 million workers kept on payroll so they could feed their families. They opposed those measures. They didn't just oppose them. Their leader held a press conference to say these are big, fat government programs. Conservatives would never support that. Canadians just...
The Honourable Deputy Leader of the Official Opposition. It's quite ironic to hear the Liberals, Madam Speaker, day in, day out, claiming that everything is fine in this country because of the astronomical spending that has caused the country to face the greatest inflation in 40 years. The cost of food has skyrocketed, but they're not responsible. Rents have doubled. Not their fault. Interest rates are making it impossible for young families to dream of owning a home. Not their fault. Why, after 8 years, is this Prime Minister so irresponsible regarding the problems of Canadians? The Honourable Minister. Madam Speaker, I understand the reasons for which the Conservatives find it hard to connect with Quebecers. It's because their economic policy is simply one of austerity and cuts. On this side of the House, we have implemented a number of measures to support Canadians and Quebecers. We increased benefits for seniors. We created a new benefit to help families pay for their rent. We have created a subsidy program for dental care for youth. Every single time the Conservatives voted against. The Honourable Deputy Leader of the Official Opposition. We have to listen to the Minister. But listen to us. They are still boasting. After 8 years, they are so disconnected from reality. Middle-class families are increasingly turning to food banks. An ever greater number of Quebecers, and we saw in the news this morning, have to find a second job simply just to pay for food. Seniors, after having worked hard all their lives, are now asking for help to eat. Once again, the Minister will tell us how much they've done to help, but the real question is, why, and that she should be asking herself, is why are so many people suffering after 8 years of this Prime Minister? The Honourable Minister. Madam Speaker, it is true that the world economic situation is unstable, and that is the reason for which we have to be here to support Canadians and Quebecers, Madam Speaker. I don't understand how my colleague can claim to have compassion for Canadians who are finding it hard to make ends meet, whilst voting against measures that will actually help them out, Madam Speaker. We will always be here to support Canadians. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Madam Speaker, Quebec schools are feeling the full impact of Roxham Road. Since the start of the school year last September alone, Quebec has had to open 224 new classes just to accommodate the children of asylum seekers. 224 new classes, while we are in the midst of a teacher and specialist shortage. 224 new classes, the vast majority in the Montreal area, where schools are already filled far beyond capacity. There is a human cost to this, and I'll come back to that. But first of all, is the federal government committed to footing the bill, at least footing the bill? The Honourable Minister for Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. Madam Speaker, we must respect our internal and external commitments for asylum seekers. I have a meeting today with my Quebec counterpart so that we can continue to support asylum seekers and to continue to respect international and domestic rules and regulations. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Madam Speaker, we are short-staffed in our classrooms. We simply cannot give our teachers more and more children who don't speak French and who are more likely to have special needs. The elastic is stretched to the very limit. To pull it further is to cut the quality of education offered to all children. Quebec does not have the resources to deal with all the asylum seekers on Roxham Road by itself. That is the reality of the matter. When will the government finally suspend the Safe Third Country Agreement and distribute the reception of asylum seekers across Canada? The Honourable Minister. Madam Speaker, my colleague would simply just shift the problem elsewhere. It is essential to have a strategy in collaboration with the province of Quebec.
Counterparts in Quebec, as we have to support efforts to provide housing for asylum seekers, as we have to support healthcare for asylum seekers. I have a meeting this afternoon with Minister Fréchette to discuss some of these issues, and I look forward to continuing our partnership to collaborate as we move towards a long-term solution with a modernized Safe Third Country Agreement with the United States.
The member for New Westminster Burnaby.
Canadians can't get their sick children care because our hospitals are struggling with staffing shortages. Nursing vacancies are up by 494% since the Liberals took office. That's almost 29,000 unfilled nursing positions in hospitals and clinics across the country. In the last election, the Liberals promised to hire thousands of healthcare workers. Incredulously, they've done the opposite, Madam Speaker. Why is the Prime Minister letting staffing shortages get worse and failing to protect Canada's universal public health care that is so important to Canadians?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health and Sports.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We share the deep concerns that Canadians have regarding the significant challenges that our healthcare system is experiencing when we recognize that urgent actions are necessary to address the current healthcare worker crisis. In fact, Madam Speaker, in the Health Committee, we've just finished our study on the human resources challenge in healthcare, and we're continuing to work with provinces and territories to deliver real results for people. That's better access to family teams, health teams, including more doctors, more nurses where there aren't enough, better access to digital health information, better mental health care, and helping to age with dignity, things that Canadians need. We will always be here to support and stand up for our public universal healthcare system. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
Madam Speaker, every community deserves to feel safe, and that's what C-21 was originally intended to do, end handgun violence. Instead, the Liberals introduced amendments at the 11th hour that would make it harder for Indigenous people, farmers, and hunters to support their families and put food on their tables. Today, the Liberals finally dropped the amendments that the Assembly of First Nations said would go against their treaty rights. Will the minister apologize for the mess he made with these amendments?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Natural Resources and Environment and Climate Change.
No, it's me.
Sir.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and it gives me pleasure to rise to respond to the honourable member's question. We are committed and promised Canadians that we would take action on gun violence. The amendments that the honourable member has referred to in Bill C-21, which I would add is an important bill that will deal with gun violence, but on those particular amendments, I will acknowledge there was not enough consultation, there were not enough conversations with Indigenous peoples across the country, and that's why we're committed in our committee, and I look forward to working with the honourable member, to listening to the concerns and to making sure that our legislation is one that will protect public safety and keep Canadians safe.
Apologize. It's the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety. So the Honourable Member for Calgary-Bindapore.
Madam Speaker, after 8 years and over $100 million spent, this government is still not admitting their close relationship with Dominique Barton and McKinsey. But close friends have dinner at each other's homes. Close friends embrace each other warmly when they greet each other. Madam Speaker, Canadians know how close the Liberal government and McKinsey and Company are. So why doesn't the government just admit it and tell us how much they've spent on McKinsey and Company?
Great question. Great question.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, on Tuesday at the OGO Committee, this member and her colleagues came to try to prove two things. One, that Dominique Barton was a close personal friend of the Prime Minister's, and number two, that Dominique Barton was involved in McKinsey getting contracts from the government. They failed abjectly. Dominique Barton said he wasn't even a friend of the Prime Minister, doesn't even have his phone number, didn't ever socialize with him, and he was never involved in McKinsey securing contracts from the government. Failure by the Conservatives on Tuesday.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Bindapore.
Madam Speaker, after 8 years, we know that this Liberal government has spent at least $100 million on contracts with McKinsey, but they're still actually trying to hide how much they have spent on the total amount of contracts. Canadians are demanding answers, and so on Monday, we're going to ask at committee again how much they've actually spent on contracts with McKinsey and Company. But before then, I'm going to give them another chance today, Madam Speaker. How much have you spent on contracts with McKinsey and Company and Dominique Barton?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Services and Procurement.
Mr. Speaker, as the Honourable Member heard, Dominique Barton has left McKinsey for years, is no longer a shareholder at McKinsey, so Dominique Barton's name shouldn't be part of that. Public Services and Procurement Canada is responsible for $104 million of contracts with McKinsey since 2015. There are other smaller contracts that have been given by other departments. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
Well, the government is very unsure, and we get new numbers often. I expect that we'll get a new higher number on Monday, but we'll be unsure if we can take the government at its word because they continue to shovel money out the door to their insider friends at McKinsey. Public servants have said that they've been treated to some colorful presentations, but not much else. And after 8 years of these Liberals, they're more than happy to keep shoveling that money with no value to Canadians. So the question still stands, and we haven't got the final and full answer. Can the parliamentary secretary tell us how much money did they give their insider friends at McKinsey?
Yeah. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, the answer to that question is generally zero because there are no insider friends that got any money.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
Madam Speaker, the question is then, who's lying? The Prime Minister said that Dominic Barton was his friend. Dominic Barton has said that he's not the Prime Minister's friend. And look, I don't blame him. I wouldn't admit that that was a friendship either. But this is a company in McKinsey that helped track down and punish Saudi dissidents, people who are critical of their government there. This is a company in McKinsey that helped supercharge the opioid crisis, paying bonuses to pharmacists who were responsible for overdose deaths.
Great job.
Speaker, one thing I would say is I'm proud to be a friend of that honourable member because we can, across party lines, still agree on a lot of things. And I think that's important here because a lot of times we yell and scream at each other, and it's important to say that people are able to work together despite their differences. With respect to the global question of that, we do need to look at our integrity regime to see if companies responsible for bad acts abroad should not be eligible for government contracts. That is one of the things that OGO is looking at, and I look forward to working with the honourable member on that question.
The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. Madam Speaker, my thoughts are for the 300 staff of Medicago who are out of a job because it closed 2 years ago. This Liberal government invested $173 million of taxpayer money in this company to produce a vaccine that was produced, but that was not and that will never be recognized by the WHO. Why? Because Medicago was partly owned by Philip Morris of the tobacco industry, and the WHO never recognizes the work of the tobacco industry. Why was the government so negligent? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. Indeed, we are currently working to preserve jobs, to preserve technology, to preserve intellectual property. Our priority is that today, Madam Speaker. We are in solution mode. I was in contact with our colleagues from Quebec City and the mayor of Montreal. I also talked to the CEO of Mitsubishi in Japan. We are in solution mode to preserve these jobs because our priority today are the people in Quebec City that are studying the matter. We want to work with them, and we are in solution mode for the next few weeks. The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. Perhaps the government should have been in check mode to check things out and make sure they are good. The WHO decided that no subsidies or any acknowledgement would be given to companies that are partly owned by tobacco companies. That was in 2003. The government signed that agreement back in 2003. On the 23rd of December 2022, the minister said to Le Soleil that he was surprised by the WHO's decision. This agreement existed in 2003 and still does today. $173 million. How much did Philip Morris make out of this money? Can we be sure that this money... End of question, inaudible for the interpreter. I would like to remind my honourable colleague, for whom I have a lot of respect, at the time we were in prevention mode because we have to remember at the time science did not tell us specifically what kind of vaccine would be required. Canada was one of the rare countries in the world that invested in various vaccine families for the safety of Canadians, as I said this morning. It's not recriminations we have to do. We have to think about solutions. I was talking to CEOs throughout the country up to midnight yesterday to find and save jobs, technology and intellectual property. The honourable member for Thérèse de Blainville. Madam Speaker, employment insurance delays are at an all-time high. Currently, a quarter of all claims are being processed late, and of these delays, more than half of them are over 50 days late. 50 days. For people with no income. This has led to officials advising unemployed people to go to food banks or to be supported by their spouses. And the worst thing is that during this time, the minister was cutting their employees' working hours. When will she fix this fiasco? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister for Families, Children and Social Development. Thank you to my colleague for the question.
Speaker, when Canadians lose their jobs and when Quebecers lose their jobs, we know that they rely on the EI system to be that first point of contact for them. We know that some people have been experiencing delays during this time, and we've been working very carefully with those claimants to ensure that they get their payments. With regards to the staffing issues, the minister said quite clearly yesterday that we are addressing this. We want to make sure that the first point of contact for Quebecers or for any Canadian in calling an EI call center is that they get the service that they need, and we've committed to working with Service Canada to ensure that full employment is in place. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Thérèse de Blainville. Madam Speaker, what we are experiencing today with employment insurance is a fiasco, a new passport crisis, except that federal victims are not waiting to travel. They're waiting to feed themselves, to buy groceries. Service Canada has transformed into No Service Canada. This government is just sailing from crisis to crisis to crisis. It is putting out one fire on the left, whilst two fires are burning bright on the right. When will the minister finally ensure that Service Canada is actually able to provide its namesake services? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Speaker, I'd just like to mention that the EI program is currently coming out of its annual winter peak period, and the department had been fully mobilized its workforce to get clients into pay as quickly as possible. In 2022-2023, the average number of wait times was 24 days for Canadians across the country, and 76% of EI payments were made within 28 days, which was within the standard. We know there are people who are waiting. We know it is a sensitive issue, which is why we are ensuring that claimants that are experiencing delays are getting the service that they need. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
St. Albert, Edmonton.
Madam Speaker, after 8 years of this Prime Minister, the bail system is broken. The Liberals implemented soft-on-crime, catch-and-release bail policies, putting violent and repeat offenders out on the streets, endangering public safety. Everyone but these Liberals seems to recognize what a disaster this has been. It's why all 13 premiers, police associations, and victims are calling on the Liberals to fix their broken bail system. Why won't they?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, Canadians deserve to be and feel safe. We all have a role to play in protecting communities. The laws on bail are very clear. If accused poses a serious risk to public safety, they should be denied bail. At our direction, federal officials have been working for months with their provincial territorial counterparts to develop ways to best keep Canadians safe. We need lasting solutions that are tough when they need to be tough, but also address underlying issues like mental health, addiction, and homelessness. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honourable Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Madam Speaker, after 8 years of this Prime Minister, the Liberals' catch-and-release bail policies have cost lives, including last December, a young OPP constable who was murdered in the line of duty by a violent career criminal out on bail, notwithstanding that he was facing such serious charges as assaulting a police officer. Now a police officer is dead. How many more lives need to be lost before the Liberals finally wake up and fix their broken bail system?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Madam Speaker, our heart goes out to those who are impacted by violence, and especially gun violence. I want to just say that as bail is concerned, there is no right to bail if you pose a serious risk to public safety. There's, in fact, a reverse onus for bail imposed on accused charged with certain firearms offences, including offences involving a firearm committed while subject to weapons prohibition order. And in this case, we will continue to work with the provinces and territories to ensure that bail is accessible, but at the same time limited to those who do not pose a risk to public safety.
Sturgeon River Parkland.
Madam Speaker, 8 years ago, Constable David Wynn of the St. Albert RCMP was gunned down by a violent repeat offender who was mistakenly released on bail. The system failed, but after 8 years of this Prime Minister, a tragic mistake has become a matter of government policy. Deliberately releasing violent repeat offenders on bail who kill innocent police officers and victims. When will this Prime Minister acknowledge his failure and fix his broken justice system?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, let me be very clear on on bail. The laws on bail limit those who do not pose a risk to public safety to be released on bail. If you look at the criminal justice system as a whole, we have a shared responsibility with the provincial and territorial governments. With respect to the federal government, we are responsible for the criminal code. The federal government is working with the provinces and territories to ensure that the administration of justice is strengthened, and we will work with them in order to get to the right place on bail, Madam Speaker.
I just want to remind members that if they don't have the floor, then they shouldn't be speaking, and there shouldn't be debate going on back and forth while others have the floor. The honourable member for Sturgeon River Parkland.
Well, Madam Speaker, police officers, victims, and the provinces are calling on this Prime Minister to fix this broken justice system. And after 8 years of this Liberal government, it has never been easier for violent repeat offenders to be released. If these Liberals don't believe it, the proof is in the pudding. Out of 44 gang-related homicides in Toronto in 2022, 24 were committed by those out on bail. The consequences of this Prime Minister's catch-and-release justice agenda are fatal. After 8 years of failure, when will this Prime Minister take responsibility and fix this broken justice system?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Sadly, Madam Speaker, there is none among us who have not been subject to the effects of violence. All of us know people who are victims. Every single one of us share an equal commitment to making sure that justice is served and our communities are kept safe. The reality is Canada enjoys one of the greatest reputations in the world for its justice system. We have one of the lowest rates of recidivism anywhere in the world. And the policies the Conservatives advocated were struck down by the courts again and again. And by the way, were tried in jurisdictions like the United States, where even the father of that movement, Newt Gingrich, said it was an abject failure.
Hear, hear. For Nunavut.
And my regards to the family and friends of the late Dale Culver. You deserve justice. It is absolutely incredible that it has taken 6 years to charge 5 RCMP officers in his death. An Indigenous policing bill should have been introduced long ago, like the Liberals had promised. It is clear the Liberals will only take incremental steps to ensure justice for Indigenous peoples. When will this government pass legislation so Indigenous peoples can keep themselves safe?
Minister of Crown and Indigenous Relations.
I would like to start off by thanking the member opposite for her advocacy. This is an important subject that we have to get right in Canada. As an Indigenous person who lives in an Indigenous community, I'm aware of the complexities, but also the need for an Indigenous policing legislation and Indigenous policing commitments. That's why our government put almost $1 billion into 2020 budget to ensure that we're moving forward on Indigenous policing, and we're going to do so because we owe a debt to Indigenous people across this country so that they can be safe and secure in their places where they reside. Thank you.
The honourable member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
My hand.
Oh, sorry. The honourable member. No, I'm going to restart. I jumped one by mistake. The honourable member of Port Moody Coquitlam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I raise my hands to the member from Nunavut. Living with a disability shouldn't mean living in poverty, but for 1 million Canadians, this is exactly what it means. The Canada Disability Benefit is at least a year away, and as Canadians wait for it, the cost of living continues to rise. The situation is dire, Madam Speaker, as people skip meals and contemplate MAID. They need financial support now. Will the Liberals provide a disability emergency relief benefit immediately to close that income gap?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Employment, Workforce Development and Disability Inclusion.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the Honourable Member for her question and for her tireless advocacy. In Canada, no person with a disability should live in poverty, and that's why we are committed to creating the Canada Disability Benefit, a thoughtfully designed income supplement with the potential to seriously reduce poverty and improve financial security for hundreds of thousands of working-age Canadians with disabilities from coast to coast to coast. Madam Speaker, I'm pleased to say that yesterday Bill C-22 passed unanimously in the House. We look forward to seeing it move through the Senate. Thank you.
The honourable member for Vaughan Woodbridge.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. We know Canada has great potential and talent to be a leader in new technology and innovation. Can the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry update this House on what our government is doing to improve Canada's competitiveness as an innovative nation? Thank you.
Madam Speaker, today was a great day for one of our Canadian champions. Madam Speaker, OpenText made its debut on the NASDAQ today, Madam Speaker. One of the largest software company in the world. And not only that, Madam Speaker, for the first time in Canadian history, the bell of the NASDAQ was ranked from Canada, from here in Ottawa. So I would say to all Canadians and to all members, if you know someone, an employee at OpenText, it's thanks to their talent, know-how, and expertise that we can celebrate. Just send them a letter, send them a text message, give them a phone call. They made all of us Canadians proud today.
The honourable member for Red Deer Lacombe.
Madam Speaker, after 8 long years of this government, crime has surged to a level not seen in decades. Not only are communities subjected to daily shootings and stabbings, but now they worry about random attacks in their subways. Rapists are let out on bail the same day the police take them down to the courthouse. Public safety is not some graduate project for a criminologist. Its implementation has deadly consequences if we don't get it right. So instead of creating repeat victims, why doesn't this government listen to the provinces and deal with repeat offenders?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And as someone who lives close to the City of Toronto and uses the TTC, I am deeply concerned about the spike in violence on the TTC. The Minister has spoken with Mayor Tory to express our support for him and the City of Toronto. Our government has taken action on supporting law enforcement, on violence prevention, on mental health supports. And most recently, the Minister was in Toronto to announce $12 million in support, along with the Mayor, to address many of the social determinants that can lead to violence through the Building Safer Communities Fund. We'll continue to work with the City of Toronto and all communities to keep communities safe.
For Red Deer Lacombe.
Madam Speaker, in 2022, 5 Canadian police officers were killed in a deadly 37-day stretch. The President of the Police Association of Ontario has called this unprecedented. All the while, shootings continue in Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver. Drugs, guns, and contraband continue to flow across the border, and repeat offenders are out on bail, allowed to continue harming society unmitigated. We know that this Prime Minister has been convicted of 2 ethics offenses on separate occasions in the last 8 years. So is that why this government is so afraid to deal with repeat offenders?
Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I am proud of the record on this side of the House that we have taken when it comes to keeping communities safe, whether that be investing in the border and replacing the money that was taken away by the Conservative government when they were in power. We are giving the tools to the Canadian Border Services Agency to keep the borders safe, to ensure that guns are not being smuggled across the border. There's always more to do, Madam Speaker, and we will support law enforcement, we will support communities, and we will do everything we can to ensure that Canadians are safe.
L'honorable député de Montmagny.
The honourable member from Montmagny, Liselé, Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup. Well, Madam Speaker, after 8 years of this Prime Minister, our towns are less safe than they have ever been. Crime rates have increased by 32%, and gang-related crimes have almost doubled. All of this because of this government's lax policies, which facilitate bail for violent criminals and have eliminated mandatory minimums for firearms-related crime. Madam Speaker, when will this government finally take our street violence seriously?
Honorable Ministre.
The Honourable Minister. Madam Speaker, my colleague is raising a critical issue for Montreal, Quebec, and everywhere in the country. And I'd like to know if he cares about firearms-related violence and crime, why do the Conservatives systematically block measures that are for exactly that, to better control firearms in Canada? Madam Speaker, we have a bill on the table right now, C-21, to ensure that we end the sale of handguns throughout the country. And the Conservatives are opposing that. The honourable member. Madam Speaker, this government is behaving like there's no problem, but Canadians can see the direct impacts of this government's bad policy. Nearly half of gun-related homicides in Toronto last year were committed by individuals out on bail. The last thing that Canadians want is to see this spread throughout the country. We need to overhaul the bail system. Will this government show the courage to do so? And if so, will it vote for our motion? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, I'm very pleased to answer a second question on the issue of firearms violence. But I'm surprised to hear it from the Conservatives, Madam Speaker, because, Madam Speaker, we've been watching violence against women, violence among youth. We've been watching those rates increase with guns. So why are the Conservatives against our measures to better control firearms in this country? The Honourable Member for Joliette. Madam Speaker, yesterday, Australia announced that it would be removing the British monarchy from its banknotes. Charles III will be replaced by Indigenous art. This is a modern and democratic example that Canada should follow. Because it may not seem like much, but banknotes is how countries present themselves to the world, and Australia is choosing to put forward its own culture and its own people. But Canada is instead putting forward a foreign monarch and the authoritarian heritage it represents. It's 2023. Isn't it time for this to change? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, I've been closely following Australia's decision. And it's important to consider the future of the monarchy in Canada. People have widely diverging opinions on this. Up until now, the monarchy has worked well for Canada. But I do think that my colleague's position is interesting. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, I was talking about banknotes specifically. I think it's time to move on. And in any case, Canada is going to need to replace its currency. So while it's at it, does anyone really want to see King Charles on the banknotes? Of course, it's not up to the Bloc Québécois to choose Canada's symbols, but it's hard to believe that Canada can't find something better in its 150 years of history. Canada is a democratic country. Why would it once again choose a foreign monarchy and its heritage of racism and violence, including towards Indigenous people and Francophones? Thank you. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister and the Treasury Board. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I appreciate my honourable colleague's question, and I would say that in 2018, the Canadian government launched a competition to place a woman on a banknote for the first time in our history. And I'm very pleased that Viola Desmond was chosen. She's now on the $10 bill. And now it's time to see how we can replace the image on the $5 bill. Madam Speaker, we will be constantly renewing our Canadian institutions.
Edmonton Manning.
Madam Speaker, after 8 years of this Prime Minister, inflation is at record levels. Grocery prices were up 11% last year. Liberal tax hikes makes things worse, and they are planning more of them. The wind chill in Ottawa today is -40 below, but this is not as cold as this government's heart. They cause this problem. When will they cancel their tax hikes? Thank you.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, first of all, we've lowered taxes for middle-class Canadians twice. We've lowered taxes for small businesses twice. And it's important that the opposition understands that inflation is...
Il n'y a pas d'interprétation. Does it work now? Is it working now? Yeah? Okay, so if the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary can restart his answer.
I want to restart my answer, Madam Speaker, because it gives me a second opportunity to talk about how we've lowered taxes for middle-class Canadians twice. We've lowered taxes for small business twice. And when it comes to global inflation, it is in fact global. It's too high in Canada at 6.3%, but it is higher in our economic peers. It's 6.5% in Europe. It's over in the United States, over 9% in Europe, over 10% in the OECD. But we should be encouraged that inflation is actually coming down in Canada. We have a strong fiscal framework that allows us to invest in affordability, in good, clean jobs, and making sure that we build an economy that works for everyone.
The Honourable Member Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge.
Madam Speaker, the Liberals have put BC families in an impossible position with their inflationary spending. After 8 years of this Prime Minister, the price of gas, rent, and groceries have all skyrocketed. Half of Canadians are now worried they can't properly feed their families. Meanwhile, the Liberals are dishing out multi-million-dollar contracts to friendly friends. When will the Liberal government stop lining the pockets of their friendly friends and start focusing on everyday Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Families, Children and Social Development.
Speaker, I always hope that we can certainly be friendly with our colleagues across the way. Madam Speaker, you know, I really find it difficult and challenging that, you know, the Conservatives seem to have this tactic of saying one thing but doing something else. They say they're really concerned about Canadians, but they vote against our measures for, you know, whether it's for rental and dental, they vote against our measures in terms of protecting workers, they vote against our measures in terms of cutting taxes on the middle class. They even wanted in their campaign proposals to cut childcare in this to cut the childcare agreements in this country. So they're not really there for Canadians. Not so friendly.
Widows Maple Ridge.
Madam Speaker, after 8 years of this Prime Minister, Canadians are having a hard time paying for everything, including imported vegetables. Life has never been so expensive. An innovative and environmentally safe agribusiness is ready to open in my community, but is concerned with upcoming Liberal restrictions. Question: why does this Liberal government have no problems spending billions on friendly consultants, but seems determined to make life more difficult and expensive for hardworking Canadians?
Yeah. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Canada is working and Canadians are working. In fact, they're working in record numbers. Over 659,000 jobs created since the pandemic. It's actually what allows us to invest in making life more affordable, by protecting and increasing retirement security for seniors, by investing in dental care for children. And good news on that front, Madam Speaker, I am happy to report today that over 152,000 children have been able to go to the dentist under the age of 12 because the investment is we made. That's lifting a burden off of Canadian parents, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Châteauguay-Lacolle. Madam Speaker, for several months, we've been hearing unacceptable stories about a number of sports in Canada. For years, our government has been implementing new policies in order to end this scourge which is undermining wonderful talents in Canada and also destroying lives. Can the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health and the Minister of Sport explain to us how our government's decisions are creating change? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health and the Minister of Sports. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for her question and her support in this critical file. Our government is creating new structures to protect athletes and to offer them solutions which will help and support them. A few months ago, the Office of the Sports Ethics Commissioner was created, and already 34 sports federations and associations have joined. We will do everything we can to protect our athletes. Thank you.
For Cypress Hills Grasslands.
Well, Madam Speaker, after 8 years of this Prime Minister, Canadians are paying the price for his destructive policies. The farmers who produce our food are continuing to struggle. A farmer from my riding recently showed me his latest gas bill for grain drying. The carbon tax and the GST that was applied on top of it amounted to over $1,100. But with the higher costs for producers in the field and consumers at the grocery store, the Liberals don't care. They're going to go ahead and triple that carbon tax anyway. When will they stop punishing Canadian families and the farmers who feed them?
Hear, hear. L'Honorable Ministre de l'Agriculture et de l'Agroalimentaire.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I can tell you that we do care for farmers. I work very closely with farmers across the country, and we are the government that has invested the most in the history for the agriculture and agri-food sector. We just signed the the Sustainable Canadian Agricultural Partnership. We have increased by 25% the cost-shared contribution to support our farmers. When the Conservatives were there, they were cutting in science, they were cutting in business risk management, they were cutting on everything for farmers.
The Honourable Member for Regina, Wascana.
Madam Speaker, on December 3rd, CTV ran a story with the following headline:
Transport Minister confident in a smooth holiday air travel season. But as we all know, the chaos that Canadians experienced at airports last summer was repeated in December and January, with Canadians stranded at airports for days on end. Madam Speaker, after 8 years, what exactly is this Liberal government doing to prevent air travel chaos?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transport.
Madam Speaker, our government understands how the delays and cancellations this holiday season were extremely frustrating for travelers. We expect all airlines to communicate with passengers and keep them informed of delays or cancellations. We are always looking at ways to strengthen rights for passengers, and we will continue to ensure these rights are protected, and the Canadian Transportation Agency has the resources it needs to enforce these rights. And as the minister who was before us at the Transport Committee committed, we are looking to strengthen the passenger air rights. We will continue to make sure that the Canadians have a smooth...
Madam Speaker, in a vast country such as ours, efficient air travel to all regions is essential. But after 8 years of this Liberal government, mid-size airports like Regina are bearing the brunt of airline cutbacks and lack of competition, leaving people in those regions feeling like second-class citizens. Will this government help Canadians who use mid-size airports, or will this government continue to leave them stranded?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, our government will continue to strengthen everything that the Canadians require to have a smooth experience in travel. We continue to dialogue with our airports. The minister's office and the minister himself continues to meet with them and have that conversation, and we will always be there to listen to the concerns and to the needs, and we will deliver for all Canadians across the country.
Member for Whitby.
Madam Speaker, now more than ever, Canadians rely on access to affordable, reliable, high-speed internet. It keeps us connected with loved ones, but also allows us to learn online while improving access to essential services and creating opportunities for our businesses to grow. Can the Minister of Rural Economic Development update this House on the progress our government is making on achieving our goal of connecting 98% of Canadians by 2026 and 100% of Canadians by 2030?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I want to thank my honourable colleague from Whitby for the question and his strong, unwavering advocacy for rural issues. Madam Speaker, we know that investments towards high-speed internet are transformational for improving the lives of rural Canadians, whether they're working from home, accessing healthcare, education, and frankly, for keeping in touch. Today, 93.5% of Canadians have access to high-speed affordable internet. In 2014, it was just 79% of Canadians had access, Madam Speaker. As my colleague said, we're well underway to meeting our commitments of having everybody connected by 2030, because, Madam Speaker, when rural Canada succeeds, all of Canada succeeds.
Member for Courtenay Albany.
Speaker, deep seabed mining threatens ocean ecosystems. Rather than take a stand on deep seabed mining like France, Germany, Spain, and others, the Liberals prefer to support Canadian mining companies such as the Metals Company in creating industrial-scale mining sites on the deep seabed. Meanwhile, lives and livelihoods of Indigenous and coastal communities around the world that rely upon the health of the oceans may be threatened. Will this government stand up today for the safety and protection of our oceans and demand a moratorium on international deep seabed mining?
L'Honorable Ministre.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Canada's position is that seabed and marine environment require effective protection through rigorous regulatory structures, applying a precautionary and ecosystem-based approach, using science-based and transparent management, and ensuring effective compliance. As the situation evolves, Madam Speaker, our government will continue to work with scientists and will work with international partners. We all want to do what's right for Canada. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Kitchener Centre.
Madam Speaker, the pandemic has been devastating for artists and the organizations that support them. Ticket sales for live orchestras like the Kitchener-Waterloo Symphony are still an unsustainable 33% lower than before the pandemic. The government ended pandemic relief funds for arts organizations, but they still need our help. After months of advocacy, the minister said he will monitor the situation, and that's not good enough. Can the KW Symphony count on this government's support in Budget 2023?
Good question. Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank the honourable member for his question. We know that the performing arts was the first impacted by the pandemic and will be the last to recover. We are aware of the situation the honourable member has brought to the attention, and I know he's met with the Minister of Canadian Heritage on the file. We will work with this organisation to find the solution to the issues that they've raised. But, Madam Speaker, this government has been there for our culture sector since 2015, after cuts from the previous Conservative government. We've been there from the start of the pandemic. We are there for our arts and culture sector. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
And that brings us to the end of question period. Tabling of documents. Introduction of government bills.